Part 3. The captain told his men to bring him 38 big oil jars. He filled one of the jars with oil and told his men to climb into the others. Then he put the jars on donkeys. He dressed himself as a merchant and rode to Ali Baba's house. Morgiana opened the door.
"I'm an oil merchant,"
he said.
"All the hotels in the city are full, and it's late. Can the master of the house give me a bed for the night?"
Ali Baba was happy to help the merchant.
"Tell him to leave his jars downstairs,"
he said to Morgiana. After dinner, the captain went downstairs and whispered to his men in the jars.
"When I say, 'It's time,' break the jars and come upstairs."
Then he went to bed. Morgiana was in the kitchen. She wanted to make some soup, but she didn't have any oil.
"The merchant's jars are full of oil,"
she thought.
"I'll take some from one of them."
She took her pan and went downstairs. While she was closing the door, a voice from inside one of the jars said,
"Is it time yet?"
She was very surprised. She answered,
"No, it isn't time yet."
She went to another jar. A voice said,
"Is it time yet?"
She gave the same answer as before. She went to the other jars, one by one. She heard the same question from inside each one, and she gave the same answer. Only one jar didn't speak. She opened it. It was full of oil. She filled her pan and went back upstairs.
"The merchant wants to kill my master,"
she thought.
"I must do something."
She heated the oil on the fire until it was very hot. Then she went downstairs and poured some of the boiling oil into each of the jars.
"Now we are all safe and I can sleep in peace,"
Morgiana said to herself. At midnight, the captain came downstairs.
"It's time,"
he whispered. Nothing happened. He opened one of the jars and looked inside. He was horrified. He looked inside the other jars. All his men were dead, boiled in oil.
"Ali Baba is a dangerous man,"
he thought, and he ran back to the forest. Ali Baba saw the jars the next day and asked Morgiana,
"Why are the merchant's jars still here?"
Morgiana showed him the bodies in the jars.
"Well done! You are a very clever girl,"
Ali Baba said. Many months passed. The captain changed his name to Khawaja Hussein and bought a shop in the market square. He sold the cloth and carpets from the cave. He became friends with the other shopkeepers. One of them was a young man. One day, Ali Baba visited the young man's shop. The captain saw him. Later, he asked his young friend,
"Who was that man in your shop today?"
"That was my father, Ali Baba,"
the boy replied. The captain was surprised.
"That's interesting,"
he thought. He still wanted to kill Ali Baba. Some weeks after that, Ali Baba's son went to his father and said,
"Father, I would like to invite my friend Khawaja Hussein to dinner tomorrow." "Of course,"
replied Ali Baba.
"I'll ask Morgiana to make something special to eat."
The next evening, the captain arrived at Ali Baba's house. When Morgiana saw him, she said to herself,
"This is the merchant who wanted to kill my master. He has another plot. I must do something."
She served dinner, and then she put on a very beautiful dress. She went to the cook and said,
"Tonight I'm going to dance for our master's guest, and you're going to play the tambourine for me. Come, let's go to them now."
Morgiana danced some beautiful dances. The last one was very exciting. She had a dagger in her hand. After this dance, Morgiana took the tambourine from the cook and went to the men. Both Ali Baba and his son put a gold coin in it. Then she went to the captain. He put his hand in his pocket to take out some money. But just at that moment, Morgiana took her dagger and plunged it into his heart. He fell to the floor, dead. Ali Baba was shocked.
Morgiana, why did you do that?
He said.
He was the captain of the band of thieves, and he wanted to kill you.
She replied. She lifted the man's jacket and showed Ali Baba the knife in his belt.
You are a very clever woman, Morgiana,
he said. Then he looked at his son and said to him,
Son, you must marry Morgiana. She is the cleverest woman in Persia.
The Second Voyage of Sinbad the Sailor. Part 1. There was once a sailor from Baghdad, called Sinbad. He made 7 long voyages in his life. They were all full of adventures. He met many strange people and saw many strange things. When he was old, he liked telling people about his adventures, and they liked listening. This is the story of his second voyage.
When I returned home from my first voyage, I lived a comfortable life in the city for some years. Then I began to get bored. I dreamt of sailing the seas again. I wanted new adventures. One morning, I packed my chest and travelled to the port of Basra. There was a good, strong ship in the harbour, and it was ready to sail. I got on it. We travelled from port to port and from island to island. The other passengers on the ship were merchants, and when we stopped, they bought and sold things. Soon, I began to do the same. Weeks and months passed pleasantly, but without adventure. Then, one day, the wind took our ship to a strange and beautiful island. There were trees with delicious fruit, flowers of many colours, and streams of sweet water. The air was full of the songs of birds, but there weren't any people. The other passengers started to explore the island. I was tired, so I sat under a tree. I ate some of the delicious fruit from the trees and drank some of the sweet water from the streams. Then I fell asleep. When I woke up, I looked around. I was alone on the island. I looked out to sea and saw my ship on the horizon. I began to feel afraid. "Oh, poor me," I said. "What shall I do now?" I walked around the island for an hour or more. Then I climbed a tall tree. I can get a better view of the island from the top of a tree, I thought. I looked left and right, but I saw only trees, flowers, birds, the sea and the sky. Then I looked more carefully. There was a big white object in the distance. I decided to go and have a look at it. When I got nearer, I saw that it was a dome. I touched it and walked round it. It was very smooth and very big, but there were no doors or windows in it. Suddenly, it became dark. I looked up and saw an enormous bird above me. It covered the sun. "A rock," I said to myself, "and this white dome is her egg." I remembered a traveller's story about these birds. It said that rocks caught elephants for their babies to eat. Just at that moment, the bird landed on top of her egg, and soon she was asleep. I quickly took off my turban and tied one end of it to the rock's foot and the other around my waist. Perhaps this bird will take me to a land where there are cities and people, I thought. I waited all night. In the morning, the roc woke up and flew away, and she took me with her. She didn't take me very far. We landed on the side of a mountain. I quickly untied my turban and hid behind a rock. The roc picked up a huge snake in its talons and flew away. I looked around me. I saw a lot more snakes. They were sleeping among the rocks. This is a terrible place, I thought. There was fruit to eat and water to drink on the island, but there are only snakes here.
Part 2.
I walked down into the valley. There weren't any trees or flowers, only sand and rocks. The small stones under my feet sparkled in the sunshine. I looked at them more carefully. They weren't stones. They were diamonds. Then I knew where I was. This is the Valley of Diamonds, I said to myself. Nobody escapes from here. I began to feel very afraid. I looked around. The snakes were still asleep among the rocks. Their bodies were as thick as tree trunks. They'll wake up when it is dark, I thought, and come out to look for food. I must find a safe place to sleep tonight. Perhaps there are some caves here. It was beginning to get dark, and I could hear the snakes. They were waking up. I walked faster. Soon I found a cave. It was big and dark inside, but the floor was dry. This is a good place to sleep, I thought. I'll put a big rock in the mouth of the cave to keep the snakes out. I'll be safe here until the morning. I went in and looked around. At the back of the cave, I could see 2 small red lights. 2 eyes. There was a huge snake there. She was sitting on her eggs. She was looking at me. I ran out of the cave. It was completely dark in the valley now, and the snakes in the rocks were coming out. They made a terrible noise. I was very afraid. I decided to stay in the cave. 1 snake is better than 100, I thought, and she is more interested in her eggs than she is in me. So I found a rock and closed the cave. I was awake all night. I could hear the snakes outside. The noise was terrible. The snake at the back of the cave sat on her eggs and looked at me. When I saw the first light from the sun, I moved the rock and went out. It was quiet. The snakes were asleep, so I left the cave and started walking down the valley. Suddenly, something fell out of the sky and landed at my feet. It was a big piece of meat. Then another piece of meat fell out of the sky. I was very surprised, but I remembered another traveller's story about the Valley of Diamonds. The story said that diamond merchants never came into the valley because it was a very dangerous place, but they had a very clever way of getting the diamonds out. They stood on the tops of the mountains and threw big pieces of meat down into the valley. The meat was soft, so the precious stones stuck to it. At midday, rocks and eagles flew down into the valley. They picked up the pieces of meat and carried them up to the tops of the mountains. When the birds landed, the merchants shouted loudly and made a lot of noise. The birds were afraid and flew away. Then the merchants took the diamonds out of the meat and put them into chests. This was the only way of getting the diamonds out of the valley. Later, the merchants sold the precious stones in the cities for a lot of money. The story gave me an idea. I filled my pockets with the biggest diamonds I could find. Then I tied myself to a piece of meat with my turban. Soon an eagle came down. It picked up the piece of meat and me and flew up to the top of a mountain with it. As soon as we landed, there was a lot of noise and shouting. The bird was afraid and flew away. I untied myself quickly and started to run. "Hey, you! Stop!" a man shouted. I stopped. "Don't hurt me, sir," I said. "I'm an honest man. I don't want your diamonds." I took 3 big diamonds out of my pocket. "Look," I said. "Take these. I picked them up in the valley." And I gave him the stones. The man was very happy and thanked me. He took me to meet his friends. They were all diamond merchants. They gave me food and drink and listened to my story. One of them said, "You're the first man to escape from this valley." I travelled with them for many weeks. We visited many countries, and we had many adventures. I gave them diamonds, and they gave me food and drink. In one port, there was a ship that was going to Basra. I was tired of travelling, and I wanted to see my family again, so I got on it. From Basra, I travelled back to Baghdad. I was happy to be home again. I was a rich man. I gave many presents to my family and money to the poor people of the city. I enjoyed my comfortable life at home. But after a few years, I started to get bored. I wanted to travel the seas again and have new adventures.
The Story of the Young King of the Black Islands. Part 1. When King Mahmud of the Black Islands died, his young son became king. A few weeks later, he married his cousin. The young king loved his wife very much, and he thought that she loved him. He was happy, but she was not a good wife, and she didn't love him. She also had magic powers. The king and the queen lived happily for 5 years. Then one afternoon, the young king heard a conversation between 2 of his wife's maids. They didn't know that he was listening to them.
"It's sad that the Queen doesn't love the King, isn't it?"
One of them said.
"Yes, it is."
The other maid replied.
"She's a bad woman. Every night she puts a sleeping potion in his wine. Then when he is asleep, she goes out to meet her lover in the forest."
The young king was horrified. He decided to watch his wife carefully. That night, he didn't drink his wine, so he wasn't asleep when the queen got out of bed and left the palace. He followed her to the forest. Her lover was there, and they kissed passionately. When the young king saw them together, he was very angry. He took out his sword and hit the man on the neck. The man fell to the ground. Then the young king ran back to the palace before the queen had time to see his face. The next morning, the queen came to his room. She was wearing black clothes, and she was crying.
"Husband,"
she said,
"I'm mourning my family. My father, my mother, and my 2 brothers are all dead."
The young king said nothing. He knew that it was not true. The queen mourned for a year. At the end of this time, she built a black dome in the palace garden and filled it with precious carpets and paintings. Then she took her lover's body there. He wasn't dead, but he couldn't move or speak. She put him on a sofa in a dark room and built a beautiful fountain for him there. She went to see him every day and gave him soup and wine to drink. She cried all the time. 3 years passed. One day, the young king went to the dome to speak to his wife. She was crying as usual. He was very angry.
I'm tired of your tears,
he shouted, and he took out his sword.
You are a bad woman. I know that you keep your lover here.
Yes, I do.
The queen replied.
I love him, and I hate you.
The king lifted his sword to kill her, but the queen put a magic spell on him before he could hit her. She turned his legs into a block of black marble. He couldn't move. Then she turned the 4 islands into 4 mountains, the city into a lake, and the people in the city into fish. Part 2. After that, the queen visited the black dome every day. First she went to her husband and beat him 100 times with a whip. He cried and shouted loudly, but her heart was hard. Then she went to her lover. After giving him some soup and wine, she said,
How are you today, my love? Speak to me.
But he never moved, and he never spoke. Some years later, a king from a distant country travelled to the Black Islands. He went in the Black Dome and found the young king. When he heard his story, he felt very sorry for him. He promised to help him.
I have a plan,
he said. The next day, the king went to the room where the queen's lover was. He killed him with his sword and threw the body down a deep well. Then he lay down on the sofa. Soon the queen arrived. She went to her husband and beat him 100 times. After that, she went to her lover's room. It was dark, so she couldn't see the man on the sofa very well.
How are you today, my love?
She said.
Speak to me.
The king answered,
I'm very tired. When you beat your husband, he shouts very loudly, and I can't sleep. Take the spell off. I don't want to hear him any more.
The queen was very happy to hear her lover's voice again. She said,
I'll take the spell off immediately, my love.
She went back to her husband's room and took a cup of water which she heated on a fire. Then she said some magic words and threw the water over the block of marble.
Now you are free,
she said.
Go away from here and never come back.
The young king jumped for joy, and the queen went back to her lover's room.
My husband is free,
she said.
Are you better now, my love?
The king answered,
I'm still tired. Every night at midnight, the fish in the lake jump out of the water and cry and shout loudly. I can't sleep. Take the spell off. I don't want to hear them any more.
The queen immediately ran to the lake and took the spell off. The fish became men, women, and children again, and the lake became a city. The queen went back to her lover's room and said,
The people are free. Do you feel better now?
Come here,
said the king.
Come closer.
The queen moved closer. Then the king suddenly jumped up and cut her body in half with his sword.
The queen is dead,
he said to the young king.
and your city and your people are free.
The young king was very happy.
Why don't you come back with me to my country?
Asked the king.
I have no children of my own. You can be my son and rule my kingdom when I die.
Thank you, I will.
replied the young king immediately.
I never want to leave you.
Good,
Said the king.
I'll send my vizier to the Black Islands. He'll be a good sultan.
So the two kings made preparations for their long journey back to the king's country. They arrived safely, and they both lived peacefully for the rest of their lives.